Overloading in Python. Is it available or not available? Well, if you see this example, I have a function with the name add taking 2 parameters. Then I have another function with the same name with 3 parameters. And now I'm trying to call both of them. I'm trying to call the first one that takes 2 parameters and second one that takes 3 parameters. But when you try to call this, it is complaining saying this add, which you are calling in line number 11 here, it says this is not passing any value for positional argument C. But if you're wondering why is it calling this, because you intend to call this. Well, in Python, there is no overloading. You don't create multiple functions with the same name and then expect language to call appropriate function. That's not possible because this is how it works in Python. So your add is initially pointing to the first function with the 2 parameters. Your first version is taking only 2 parameters. And then when you created another function with the 3 parameters, your add is pointing to that. So this is the function you're calling now, not that. And you have no access to this anymore. And this is just the address. And now the address is pointing to this function. So when you say add with the 2 parameters, it doesn't work because you are now pointing to this. So that's the way it works. And you can prove this by printing the address. So let's go and print the address of add here. Immediately after that, the address of add is 1. And after this, the same address, the address of add is not going to be the same. So go ahead and run and you can see in the beginning, this was the address. But after you created one more function with the same name, then the name starts pointing to this new function, and this is the address of that new function. So what you need to know is there is no overloading. Instead, the name points to a new function with new parameters. So functions are very much like other objects. Just like how if you assign a new value to a variable, it points to that new value. The function name is also pointing to a new object. So you're not having any overloading in Python. It's because the way it is internally functioning. So add points to this function first. Then the same add is pointing to a new function. But if you want to have access to this before this happens, you can store this address into some other variable. So for example, I can say add2, and I can copy this to this so that this is pointing to this before this is pointing to that. What I want to do is, before I create this function with 3 parameters, I say add2 is equal to add. Yes, you can assign the address of one function to another variable because this is also internally like a variable. It's pointing to a function instead of a simple value. Now copy the address into add2, and now here if you say add2 instead of add, it works. And now go ahead and try, all is well. So this is the picture you're seeing. Your add2 is pointing to this 2 parameter function. This add is pointing to 3 parameter function. So your function name is very much like a pointer to a function. And this is a very important part of Python because you have to understand this to understand many expressions in Python. So later when we talk about passing function as a parameter, this becomes the key component. So I want you to understand how the name is pointing to a function and how the name is pointing to a new function when you create a new function. So if you want to refer to old function, then you can store the address in another variable and use that to invoke it. This is what you can do. So that's the picture. And this is no longer pointing to that. So this link is gone. We are not talking about this anymore. So it is just pointing to the new function here. And then if you have stored this add into this, then this is pointing to that. That's the way it goes. So no overloading. That's the point to be remembered because of the way the language is. There are good number of differences between Python and other contemporary languages like Java, C#, because this is dynamically typed where things go differently and they're all statically typed. So overloading is a very widely used concept in Java and C#, but it's completely missing from Python. That's what I want you to understand.